from the top?
Let's take it from the top.
Welcome to 6 Minute Increments, where we look at and study the relationship between law and business. And today we have one of our most esteemed, as well as unique visitors to our friendly little podcast here, Judge Joseph Valentino, now retired, but a former New York State Supreme Court as well as Appellate Division judge. Yeah. Welcome to the show today.
I'm very happy to be here. It's nice to see both of you again.
I think that a lot of people are going to be very interested in hearing about what it's like to actually be a judge. I think it's the part of the legal world that, for better or worse, most people don't get to experience, but they know exists. How does one go about becoming a judge?
Well, in the state of New York, you have to be elected to be a judge, unless it's a federal position. Those are appointed. I was in the district attorney's office, and I was in charge of major felonies. So I had quite a bit of press, which is good if you're going to run for election, because people like to vote for somebody whose name they're familiar with. While I was there, a couple of attorneys who were involved in politics came to see me one day and said, I think you should run for judgeship. And you live in the city, and you should run for a city court judge. We think you do this. You know, they try to build you up because they want you on the ticket. So, I talked it over with my wife at the time. The kids were smaller then. And so you have to make a commitment that you're going to go out and talk to people. Some people, men and women, would make excellent judges, but they can't get out and talk to people, because to become a judge, you have to campaign, which is not a lot of fun sometimes. Sometimes it's amusing, sometimes it's fun, but you have to get out there. And so I put my name in, and as it turned out, there were 4 positions open at the time, because 4 of the judges had moved up to higher courts from city court. So there were 4 of us running. And there were 3 Democrats and 1 Republican. I'm a Democrat. And both parties decided to cross-endorse because they wanted to get the Republican in. At the time, and right now, if you're a Democrat, you have a good shot of winning in Rochester City Court. So I was thinking, this is great. I don't have to campaign that much. I get cross-endorsed, and we got primaried. So a primary is when somebody challenges you because they want to run, and so there's like a mini election that occurs. Back then it was in September. Now primaries are pushed up more, but so we had a campaign. We had to go door to door. Like I was appointed by Mayor Ryan, Tom Ryan, and it was funny. I got appointed the last week of 1982, and on January 3rd, whatever it was, 1983, they put me right into court, right into city court.
So how long were you a judge? From 1982, and you just retired a few years ago.
33 years.
33 years on the bench.
Yeah, I was Rochester City Court, the Monroe County Drug Court, New York State Supreme Court, and then the Appellate Division.
So we've had a number of people who are thinking of going to law school, and I think some of the people that watch this show are actually into that. Some of them have had visions of grandeur of being a judge. When you went to law school, what drove you down this path, or just going to law school in general?
I lived in a house with 14 guys when I was a senior in college, and I played in a band. So unfortunately, I played in a band first and studied second. That was my problem.
Some people you might know played soccer first and studied.
Yes, exactly. One day I came home from class, and one of the guys had the stuff for the LSATs. He wanted to go to law school, and he was talking about it. And I always thought about it. I always admired lawyers and watched all the programs and everything. And so I said, maybe I'll apply. So I took the LSAT. Now, I was always good at those quickie exams. Like the SAT, I scored high. But my marks were not the best. I was a little bit above average in marks because I had terrible study habits. So I figured, well, I'll apply to some of the places. And so I got into Duquesne, because at that time, Duquesne was the only law school that had third-year law students that could practice with an attorney by their side. Now it's all over, but back then they were like the pioneers of that. So I liked that idea. And then I got on the waiting list at Buffalo, and I got accepted at St. John's. I wanted to go to the big city. I wanted to go to New York.
Somebody else I know did that.
Who else did that? Oh,
That
you did?
did.
Yes.
Where did you end up going?
I went to New York Law School.
Oh, yeah. I had a lot of friends down there.
Yeah.
And when I went to St. John's, the law school was in Brooklyn. They hadn't moved out to the main campus yet. And so I was good friends with all the different law schools from Manhattan, Brooklyn, all over. So I went and applied to law school. I got into law school. My first, I lived with 3 guys there. I show up at the apartment. I'm ready to go to Manhattan. I want to go to the big city, and they're reading. And I said, "Wait a minute. What are you? Didn't you read all this stuff we got?" I go, "Oh my God!" And it was a good thing I got in with those guys, because I developed study habits, because I would have been lost. I really would have. And so it's a roundabout answer to your question, but I really got into it. I got into the trusts and estates part. I liked that aspect of the law. I enjoyed the criminal law because it made sense to me, but I never really got into it as much as the others. So I decided I was going to go come back. Well, at the time, I met my wife, who took a big risk, because I made...
She did. Good for her, though.
I know, between second and third year, everybody was getting internships or jobs with law firms so that they would have somewhere to go upon graduation. I got a phone call once, and I had a chance to play with this really hot band on Long Island, and they were making a lot of money. So I figure I need the money for my last year, so I stayed down there and played in the band in Long Island. I was going out with my wife at the time, so I made enough money for first semester. I paid for first semester. She paid for second semester.
Wow.
And we weren't married at the time, so I always told her, "You made a big bet there." But so
There's a lot of lawyers that like music, though. It's a thing.
Yeah, I found that. So we talked about it, and I said, "Look, I want to go into private practice. We should go back to Rochester, because that's where my family is. I have friends. I grew up there, a whole business." She's from England, and she thought Rochester was like New York City, but once she got here, she really liked it. So I pounded the pavement, and my intent was not to be a judge, not to be anything else. I wanted to be a practicing attorney. So I was very fortunate, because I had interviews with a couple law firms, and I don't know if you ever heard of Charles Crimmy, the father. His son was a city court judge, but the father was one of the most respected attorneys. They have the Charles Crimmy Award the Bar Association gives to people that help poor people. And I interviewed with him, and he had a couple partners, and they asked me to come back. And I'll always remember walking into his office, and he had his appointment from Robert Kennedy, the father, the real Robert Kennedy, the father, as a U.S. attorney in Buffalo. So they practiced mostly criminal law. He was either the best or one of the best criminal law attorneys in town at the time. He had all the major cases, all the gamblers too. And that's like in civil, there's certain areas where you're going to make money. Criminal, there's certain areas where you're going to make money. So I started as you guys did when you started with your firm. You walk in, there's a pile of there's cases on, and I started to learn criminal law through these guys, and I liked it. I really liked it. So I wanted to be a criminal defense attorney. So I
went a very different direction.
Yes, you're right. So I went. I signed up for assigned counsel, and I got assigned a trial. My first trial, a kid was charged with stealing drywall. I remember this, and it was not guilty. So hey, I'm Perry Mason now,
right?
So I go back to the law firm, and I talked to Charlie. I said, Charlie, I'd like to do more trials. I really like this thing. So he said, okay, Joe, listen. You don't have a lot of experience. People come to the firm, they're not coming for you, to do their trial. He said, you got to get more experience, and this is what I would suggest to you. We really like you, but if you want to get a baptism by fire, if you want to get trial experience, you got to go into either the public defender's office or the DA's office.
Yeah.
He said, I would suggest the DA's office for 2 reasons. One is that you learn how the cops think. You learn what they do. You learn about search warrants. You learn all kinds of technical, procedural things. Second, you go in the grand jury, so you learn how juries think because they ask you questions, and then you learn all the elements of the crimes. At the end, they're going to ask you questions. After a while, you're going to realize what they think. When you pick a jury, you're going to know what they're looking for in those cases. So I'd suggest that. So I applied. Nixon was president at the time, and he gave money like crazy to law enforcement. And the DA's office here got enough money to hire 9 assistant DAs. So once again, I was lucky, and I got hired. And there was an election, and the DA lost. And when the new DA came in, the top guys either quit or had to go. So the guys like me, we got promoted immediately. And Tom Van Strydonk, Judge Van Strydonk and I, we came at the same time. So in those days, you were partners. You were assigned to a court. I would try a case, he'd prepare the next one. He'd try, I'd prepare the next one. So we were partners. And we got promoted. And I slowly got promoted more and more in the DA's office and got a lot of experience. The thing is, Charlie wanted me to stay for only about 3 years in the DA's office and then come back. But I started having children.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you realize, but the county pays you increments every year. I got paid every year. And then when I got to be a grade 1, I got more money. Then when I got to be a special assistant, I got more money. So it was more difficult to leave. And then in the interim, they broke up. Charlie's law firm broke up. Charlie went with his kids. Norman went with his kids. Everybody broke up. So now I'm in a DA's office, not thinking about being a judge, but I had a lot of trials, and I had some major trials in there as a prosecutor in the DA's office. There was a case, the Midtown Garage Rapist. You probably don't remember, but Midtown was the first enclosed plaza. But the parking was underneath, and you couldn't see. The lighting was terrible. And this guy was attacking women in the park, and they couldn't catch him in this parking garage. He attacked a professor from the Eastman School, and she was feisty. And she managed to escape, and he stole her car. We got to him, or the police got to him, because what he did is what you naturally do in a car that's not yours. He's getting away, and he's looking around, and he adjusted the rearview mirror. He put his thumbprint on the back of the rearview mirror, because they dusted the whole car. And then they got to this guy, and we tried him, and he was convicted of the rape and sodomy and everything. And I'll just give you a human interest story. Fast forward, around 30 years later, I'm on Monroe Avenue with my wife. She was shopping at a Archimage, I think it's called, something like that. And so I'm standing outside because it was hot. And this guy is walking across, And he turns and he walks across the way and he's coming toward me. I didn't know who he was. And he looks at me and goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" And I said, "No." And it was him. He had done 30 years in New York State prison.
Wow.
He said, "I just want you to know that I found the Lord while I was in prison. I have my own little congregation, and I don't have any hard feelings." And I said, "Okay, good." It's good.
That must strike fear in your heart when people walk up to you and say,
"You're not kidding." But he said, his name was Richard Dawson. He says, "I'm Richard Dawson." I go, "Oh, Jesus." That was a shocker. And then I had that nun's case that I think we talked about, that where the nun was accused of killing her baby. So all those cases made me popular.
Yep.
And so then when those guys talked to me about being a judge, I wasn't sure I wanted to be a judge. One of the questions or one of the topics that you brought forward was, what's it like? What do you think about it? And everybody told me it was not what you think it is. It's a bit lonely. Like you can't go out to lunch with all your buddies all the time. You have to be fair and impartial. You can't favor anybody. One judge told me, he says, very important that you always let the defendant have his or her dignity. I've seen and I've read sometimes where judges berate a guy when they sentence him to 25 years and they call him all kinds of names. I never did that. You should never take away somebody's dignity, no matter how bad he is. If you're going to send him away, send him away. And so I got a lot of advice about it. And then I got in my very first day. I get on the bench. They put me in the criminal. They had to cleanse me because I was in the DA's office. So they couldn't give me cases that other ones. So I had to get brand new cases. So I go into part 1, which is the arraignment part. Guy comes out. The DA worked for me in the DA's office, Dan Mistrella, his name was. And so it was a robbery, and I look and I said, okay, I got to tell him, so I'm telling him what he's charged. He's charged with robbery. And then I said, Mr. Mistrella, how do you plead? And Dan looks at me and goes, "Well, Judge, I plead not guilty, but you better ask him." I was so nervous that first day. But I enjoyed being a judge. The hardest part for me...
Did you enjoy it more than being a DA?
Yes.
You did?
Yeah. I loved the trial work. And so I did as many trials as I could as a judge. That's when Judge Schwartz asked me if I wanted to be the drug court judge. And I said, you guys don't do any trials down there. Yeah. And so he persuaded me, though, to do it. But then when I went to Supreme Court, they put me on the civil part right away. And I liked it. I liked settling cases, and didn't like matrimonial too much. But I enjoyed the civil. And then Van Strydank, who they made him the administrative judge, he came down once. He goes, "Look at, nobody wants to do criminal. I'm going to put you in criminal, all right?" I go, "Yeah, hallelujah," So then I had a trial every week. I did 1 million trials, and to answer your question, that's what made it better.
Now you've got 2 sons, 4 total, but 2 who ended up following your path. They're both in the legal profession. One's got a really interesting job. One's our partner. Less interesting maybe for him. But what about other jobs with the courts? I mean, people don't always think about clerks and what a clerk does and what is involved in that. Yep. How do you pick a clerk?
Well, the court system is a great job. For example, court stenographer, people forget about that job. The court stenographer's job is a 9-to-5 job. You have to dress appropriately. You get time off. You get a pension. It's great. The court clerk job is a great job. The court clerk runs the court. Yeah. You, as a judge, you get assigned a clerk. And I was very fortunate because I always had a good court clerk. But they run the courtroom. They're in charge. Now, with the advent of when I started, there weren't any computers or anything like that. And with the advent of computers, their job is a little easier. Law clerks' jobs are a lot easier now than they were when I first got out of law school. I remember Valerie Malonis was my law clerk in Supreme Court. And I had a thing in the beginning. I asked her to shepherdize something. And she walked out and came right back in. And I said, "Did you shepherdize this case?" She goes, "Yeah." She did it on the computer. We had to use those. I don't know if you remember those books. Those giant books.
We're old enough.
We're old enough
I have
to remember
a question. For lawyers appearing in front of you, what did you like to see and what made you crazy, just drove you up a wall?
I liked it when they were prepared, and that's when the Bar Association asked me to talk to law students through the years. I went to Syracuse, Buffalo, and same kind of questions, and I would give them advice. And the thing is, I know it sounds trite sometimes, but you have to be prepared. Right. If you can't think on your feet. All of a sudden the judge, there's like a click in the judge's brain that goes, "Oh, wait, he doesn't know what he's talking about," you know? I liked when they were when they acted professionally, when they stood up. You know, it drives me crazy sometimes when I see on television and these lawyers are sitting back like this talking to the judge, you know. I liked it when the lawyers acted professionally. I watched how they treated their clients. Sometimes they're very nasty when they treated their clients. Coming in for trying to settle a case. One time one lawyer came in and to the other lawyer, he goes, "Well, I got to tell you what my policy is." And I said, "Hold on a second. You don't have policies in here. The only one that has a policy is me."
Nobody asked you, buddy.
That's right. But see, things like that turn judges off.
Yeah.
The judges want you to know your case and be cordial. In other words, we lost a little bit of that toward the end of when I was in Supreme Court. I could see that. Lost a bit. It became more of a war.
Yeah.
One of the DAs that came in there after Howard, Mike Green was the DA. I don't know if you know Mike. Mm-hmm. He, all of a sudden, the DAs were at war with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, and that was no good. You couldn't move. You couldn't move the calendar so well. So a judge wants you to be cordial to the other lawyer. You know, you can fight it out. You know, objection, yell. You know, you can have a good, solid legal fight. Go out and have a beer afterwards. But we want you to be cordial to the other attorney.
Yeah.
Now, when you also served and got appointed to the Appellate Division, as part of that, there's the Naughty Lawyers Day when we get dragged in front of the Appellate Division. And one of the things that I think happens for a lot of lawyers is like excessive billing. I think over the years, you know, what are your thoughts about, from a law firm's perspective, what constitutes to a judge excessive billing? What are you looking for in something like that?
There were two things we used to see the most: excessive billing and commingling of funds. Those were the two things. And the excessive billing, obviously we had clerks that would go through all the papers and everything, and then, you know, you'd look and there'd be highliner and this, and so that they call your attention as a judge to how the pattern. There's always patterns in those that I would see, patterns. And so consequently, I think you really have to be on it. I think you can't trust your law clerk, or you can't trust an associate to be the biller. You have to be the last word. I know maybe this is going
I think the software, honestly, these days helps to some degree.
Yes.
But we train heavily, because I think there is a pattern of people say research 3 hours, research 3 hours, research 3 hours. And it's like, you didn't really research the same thing for 9 hours.
We had one, the billing went like 25 hours in one day.
That's a good one.
Really?
That's some creative billing right there.
I mean, but so you gotta, I would say, make sure you keep your finger on it, and the software is much better now too.
Yeah.
Commingling, I've seen the nicest lawyers, the greatest women, guys, get themselves in that problem with the commingling.
Yeah.
You know, and so you have to watch out for it. You guys don't have to worry about that too much because you're a good-sized law firm. But the private practitioner, 2 partners, 3 partners, something like Paul's got 2 partners. They have to watch out for that.
Yeah.
Where do you see that lawyers, get into ethical problems from time to time?
I think the biggest ethical thing is when they have a situation where they're related to somebody and somebody asks them to do something that is unethical. Like, can you, forget about this thing, or do I have to pay the tax on this, or what would you advise me to do? And they get themselves in a jam because they're either trying to be nice, they're trying to make a buck or whatever, and they lose their morals, to be specific. A lot of times, especially young lawyers, I always warn them that the pot of gold looks great. Like, you'll be sitting there, you got a client, and there's a possibility you could make yourselves a good buck on this thing if you cut some corners. Don't do it. I always tell them the shave test. When you get up in the morning and you shave and something's not right and you're thinking about it, don't do it. My law clerk used to say, Valerie goes, well, what if you don't shave in the morning? I said, okay, when you wash your face. But that's the thing. You have to maintain your ethics at all times, especially our profession, because people look up to lawyers. For a while we were taking bad raps, but I noticed a lot of people talk nice about their lawyers lately that I've talked to. So that's good.
That's a good note.
Yeah.
Wow.
I went to Canandaigua to watch some of Chris's trial a couple weeks ago, because I ran for election with the judge that he was in front of. He was a Republican, I was a Democrat, but we were running for different offices, so we became friends. And so I went and I saw him and I watched Chris, and Chris's clients really liked him. I could tell. Now that I like that, and that's what I used to look at as a judge, to see how the lawyer interacted with his or her client.
Speaking of clients, sitting as a judge for all those years, what do you have as a tip or a suggestion for a client who's out purchasing legal services from a lawyer?
Don't immediately go to a television advertisement. That's my first caveat. Your best thing is talk to your relatives. If you have somebody if you have a friend that's an attorney that that will give you good advice. Good attorneys don't just take the first case that comes to the door. If they realize they can't do a good job on a particular case, they'll refer. But if it's a criminal matter, you have a friend that's a policeman, talk to the cop. The cops know the good lawyers and the bad lawyers. The civil cases, it's the same thing. Talk to your accountant, talk to somebody that knows attorneys that you can trust. That's what I would say. Word of mouth is your best bet for deciding on an attorney. Just don't go to a phone book and go to see the first lawyer, or listen to the jingles. Tom Van Stryden said his daughter knew Celino and Barnes' phone number before she knew her own, because she heard it so much on the television. Excuse me.
Well, we need to make sure that we're getting back to the billing process as bringing a law firm. But I guess my one last question for you would be, for people who are thinking about getting into the legal profession, what's your tip to think about even considering being a judge? Like, how would they go about getting a feel for what that's like? We've currently hired a number of young people who are thinking of going to law school. We've interviewed them on the show, but they've never contemplated going to court. How would they even get exposure, I guess, is the question.
To go to court?
To be a judge.
To be a judge?
Be even working for the court.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I talked to couple of my grandchildren about this recently. You got to read, obviously. So you have to have a certain discipline as an attorney. You have to carry that discipline over as a judge. You can't think that, okay, now I'm a judge, everybody laughs at my jokes. They bring me coffee in the morning. I'm it. You can't have that mentality. You still have to have the mentality that you're still you learn every day, and you have to be cordial as a judge to people, just as you want the lawyers to be to one another. So if you want to become a judge, be a good lawyer first. Be an ethical lawyer. Be a lawyer that has a good reputation in the community, because if you do not have a good reputation in the community, you're not going to go anywhere.
Right.
You're not going to go. I remember to go to the Appellate division, they send you a 40-page application to fill out, and then if you get past that, you have to go before the governor's commission. I walked into a room, and it was twice the size of this room, with a table twice the size of this table, with about 20 people sitting around the table. And they ask you questions. And one of the guys who was on the governor's committee out of Albany said that, and there was no such thing as Google and research. He said, well, we researched you and we talked to lawyers, and you have a very good reputation in the Rochester community. And that struck me. And that's a thing that I tell. And if you want to be a judge, you have to have a good reputation as a lawyer. You really do. So it's important that a lot of these questions you ask, that you remain above board. I'll leave you with a funny story. The dean of the Buffalo Law School was to my left. And right towards the end, he says, what do you think of the present appellate division? So boing, I'm thinking, this is a trick question or something. What am I supposed to say? I said, I'm not sure I understand your question. He goes, well, what do you think of the present appellate division? So I could see people were a little uneasy in the room. And I said, well, when I write a decision and they affirm it, I think they're great. When they reverse me, I don't think they're so great. And everybody laughed except him. He didn't think that was very funny. But that's the thing about
the inside world of the legal community.
Yeah. So if you want to be a judge, be a good lawyer, be an ethical lawyer, and be a people person. Because that's eventually you're going to have to be a people person to campaign for judge.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you very much for being a part of our show.
You made it very easy. This is very nice. It's easy to talk about yourself, but thank you too.
Thank you.
It's nice to be back. It's good.
Yeah.
As always,
I want to thank you very much, because you were always very nice to me in that transition from appellate court to retirement. It's a tough one. And I remember his name just escaped me. Remember, he and I shared an office in the...
Jim Kiley?
Jim, yeah. How's he doing, Jim?
Good.
Okay, tell him I said hello if you see him.
We pride ourselves, and we want to focus more on, attorneys or judges or whoever retiring their career, making partnerships with them.
We see it's a good way to help train young lawyers and to attract talent so that they get training beyond what we can even supply.
Right. And your thing, you got to try to keep these lawyers. That's the thing you got to do. In conjunction with that, if you ever want me to come in and talk to any of the young ones, I kind of missed that, going to the law schools and talking to the...
You might have just on a public forum made yourself a whole new set of things to go to.
You made an offer, I accept it. Now you can't get out of it. So.
Okay. No, you were always nice to me, so I want to be nice to you.
We're privileged to have you,
participate.
Yeah.
Okay. And tell everybody I said hello.
We will.
We will.
Yeah.
As always,
like, share, subscribe with your friends and with your enemies.
Thank you.
Thank you.